Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
The International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition, observed annually on August 23rd, honors the millions of men, women and children who were subjected to the brutalities of transoceanic slavery and commemorates the uprisings and resistance that led to its eventual abolition. This day not only acknowledges the resilience and courage of the enslaved, but also recognizes the often overlooked roles played by Indigenous peoples. Cultural Survival's Indigenous Rights Radio traveled to Cape Town, South Africa, and interviewed Professor Nigel Penn, who told us about resistance and slave trade in early colonial South Africa.
There was a lot of slave resistance in South Africa, resistance by slaves to being enslaved. And the most common form of resistance is probably just to run away. People don't think of this as a form of resistance, but it is. And people could run away as a single person, but usually they ran away in groups because there's strength in numbers and you need to support each other out in the wilds. And when people ran away, they very often, of course, they took provisions and supplies with them because otherwise they would die after a few days in the wilderness with no food. And so they would take provisions with them and also sometimes rifles, or not rifles, muskets and guns, and sometimes weapons, other weapons, swords, etc. And in the course of obtaining these weapons, there's frequently violence, either robbery or overthrowing the farmhouse, killing some of the farmers, tying up the others. So this to me is a rebellion, a minor rebellion which is repeated time after time on Cape farms. And very often it's not just slaves running away, it's Khoi as well. The Khoi and slaves are forming mixed groups, call them droster gangs, or gangs of deserters, from the Dutch word for a deserter, a droster. These droster gangs would be groups of mixed ancestry, slave and Khoi. And by the end of the 19th century, you've got Khoi women, slave men who are running away with their children as well into the mountain areas, to the Orange River areas. And I'm thinking of one not so well known occurrence about 1800, 1801 in the Rockerveld, where a group of slaves and Khoi on the farm, Koornlandskloof in the Rockerveld, they murdered the farm owners called the Koetsiers. There were lots of Koetsiers in the region, but on this particular occasion they murdered the Koetsiers of the farm, Koornlandskloof, and stole weapons, stole wagons, stole food, stole money. And a group of about 60 or 70 of them, mixed Khoi and slave, women, children, men, headed towards the Orange River, trying to get to freedom. They were actually trying to join the Oorlam leader, Jager Afrikaner. I don't know if my listeners know about the Afrikaner gang, but the Afrikaner gang was a group of, I suppose, mixed Khoi slave drosters who had murdered their master Petrus Pina in the 1790s and fled to the Orange River and created what is a bit like in other slave societies in the New World, you would call it a maroon community, a community of runaway slaves who is living a semi-independent life beyond the colonial boundaries, independent because they're too powerful to be captured or destroyed. And the Afrikaners attracted many followers to themselves along the Orange River. They stole from other pastoralist societies nearby, they attacked the colonists, and they acted as a magnet to other people running away or other rebels. And I suppose the reason why South African historians are reluctant to call such groups, such incidents, slave rebellions or such group maroon slaves, is because of the presence of Khoi amongst them, where they're somehow expecting it to be a pure slave group, a pure slave rebellion. But if throughout South African or Cape slavery, you have mixed Khoi and slaves involved in these rebellions or uprisings, and the uprisings are sometimes quite primitive in forms of, they're not inspired by an ideology of sophisticated freedom. They're not saying, we want equality for all and we want to do away with monarchy. All they want is their freedom, which is quite understandable. What does an enslaved person want? They want freedom, they want to escape from slavery. So they don't have proclamations like, San Domingo. They're not fighting part of what becomes the French Revolution. They're fighting for a simple cause, which is freedom now from oppression. And there was a lot of that on the Cape, in the Cape frontier zone.
This was episode 1. Follow Cultural Survival on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, and Spotify for more episodes.